Hey guys, it's Autumn here, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to create a player character. So, if you guys are not interested in the more real life side of Dungeons and Dragons besides just what the characters look like in my in-game stories, this is probably not for you. If you are looking to create a Dungeons and Dragons character, this is the method that I found works best when creating a character. So, when creating a character, it's best to start with a story, a drawing, or a name. What do you want your character to represent? What do they look like? What is their name symbolic of? So have a visual idea of what you'd like. So for me, I tend to draw out my character and then start to think of the backstory. Then give them their name based off their backstory and kind of fold everything in together. Like my warlock character doesn't have a name quite yet, but I'm still finalizing her design and what she looks like, so that's fine. Next, you have to decide what your race is. If you've already drawn your character, there's a good reason you probably have an idea of what the race is. So there are quite a few races, so we're going to start from the handbook because there are homebrew, there's exterior books that add in races, but this is the simplicity of it. Dwarves, which are smaller and just kind of stereotypical dwarves from any other fantasy game or fantasy show. They tend to stick more to alcohol and that sort of thing. There are halflings, which are smallish humans. They've got a lot of the same features to that degree. There's elves, which are the high status. They don't necessarily need to sleep. They are more prone to being able to do magic better, but that doesn't mean they're the best magic users. Things of that nature. There are humans, which are us. They do have a special ability depending on if you go as a normal human or if you go as a human variant. The variant just means you get a feat or ability score improvement upon first level. Feats being specialty abilities that you can choose as you level up to give your character special things that they can do, such as Sentinel. Allows you on a reaction to attack and hold a person in their place so they cannot move away from you. Next are Dragonborns. These are just dragon people. They tend to have a specialized breath weapon depending on what type of dragon they are. Next are gnomes. They are small, they are tiny, they're also pretty well adept for magic use. They are also considered, instead of medium size, which is what I believe most of the other races are considered, they're considered tiny or small. Something along those lines. Half-elves are elf and human hybrid. They do not, however, get the ability score improvement that humans do get. They do, however, get a combination of both abilities, making them the best of both worlds. Next are half-orcs. Half-orcs are just that, half human, half orc, so they get orcish traits and tend to look more orcish and then have human attributes as well mixed in. And they also have an ability called, I think it's Orcish Fervor, something like that. And if you go down to unconscious, you can come back once per, I believe it's long rest, with 1 health. And then we have, last but not least, certainly, tieflings, which my note literally says fabulous demons. They're demons in the sense they've got horns and special colored skin, so you can choose anything from like a natural tone to bright fluorescent green or yellow, and it's all realistic for a tiefling. Now that you have your race picked out, classes are next, and I'm going to go in order, so let's start with the non-magic ones. Barbarians use Rage as one of their special abilities in order to have half damage dealt to themselves while raging, and they tend to use more strength-based weaponry, or just their fists, depending. So that is Barbarian. Fighters use Sword, Shield, and technically can use any weaponry within the game with proficiency and can kind of change what they want to do from there. Fighters can become magic, but only with one specific subclass, which I will touch on later. Monks fight with their fists and have special abilities related to that, so they can do multi-attacks, things of that nature. And rogues. Rogues are sneaky bastards, which allow them to deal things such as sneak attack damage, and they can hide or disengage with a bonus action. They're not inherently magical, but like I said, subclasses can give them magic. So a fighter can become an Eldritch Knight, and they can pick from a specified spell table. Rogues can become... Oh, I don't remember what the rogue subclass is, but they can get magic abilities as well. Next are half-casters, so they're mostly non-magical characters, but they get magic spells, which are rangers, which allow you to basically use a bow and arrow. You can have an animal companion, and you have a specified spell table for you. And paladins, which normally worship a god, get their powers from their god, and use that for good or evil, depending on the god, and can heal themselves with special magic, have specialized paladin spells. Next are our magic users, which are personally my favorite. They're close to my heart. And first on that list we have Bard, which are basically magical musicians. They use their singing or poetry or instrument playing abilities to cast spells. Clerics, which are healers, they tend to also follow a god and use that for their healing magic. They can stop people from dying, bring people back to life, things of that nature. Next are druids. They are literally just nature magic. There's a couple different ways that they use their nature magic, but basically they're all nature. Next are sorcerers. Sorcerers get their magical abilities from their bloodline, and they have things called sorcery points, which they can spend in order to get more spell slots back and use more spells. And they're very cheesy, but they can be fun to use if you enjoy that type of class. Next is warlock, which is what my character is. So a warlock makes a pact with a god or an entity of magical power. Not always a good one, and sometimes the character is unaware of that. And they use that for their powers, and they have their own specialized spell table that they use. They're pretty cool. Last, but certainly not least in my heart, are wizards. Wizards use intelligence to cast their spells, and they are mostly self-taught in the magic department, where they have to learn the magic all on their own, and that's what they do. Now, don't be worried if you want to have a couple classes mixed together. There is multi-classing. This does require you to have certain amounts of ability points in certain places, which I'll touch on later. But you can, in theory, multi-class to almost any race that you want. So just to keep in mind, if you choose a magic user, make sure to look up spells that will best suit your character and playstyle. Some spells are closer range, or touch spells even, while others are better utilized at a distance, such as Fireball. So decide, are you going to be a close-up magic user and touch people and cast deathly spells like that, or are you going to be farther back and kind of shoot from the back lines? Next is the background of your character. There are many backgrounds for characters, so make sure to read through them and see what you think fits your character best. This will determine how much money they earn when you first add your items and your equipment to your character, and it will determine what specialized skills you have, what certain things you are proficient at doing, and kind of allow you to build on your backstory for your character. So if your character was a war hero, don't make them a sailor for their background unless they were a sailor for war. Choose things that fit and make sense when creating your character. Depending on your familiarity with ability scores, this next part might be a little confusing. There are a few different ways to do this. So ability scores allow you to add specific skills to your character and make them stronger. One of the most easy way to explain this, and the most common way of doing this, is the point buy system. It allows you to add points to specific scores, such as your dexterity, your constitution, your intelligence, and allow you to build your character that way in order to make your stats make sense. It allows you to put the specific points in specific areas. So if you want more health, put more points in constitution. Want to go higher in initiative order? Dexterity. Just see what skills you want built strong and double check what ability score relates to them. So if you want a really smart wizard who casts spells, intelligence. If you want a warlock they tend to be charisma casters, so choose a higher charisma score. If you want a really strong barbarian, put it all in strength and constitution. Those are normally the best ones to go. So look at what your class determines is best for you. Look at your character and see what makes sense, because you're going to want to max out specific stats, but that doesn't mean you're not going to want everything to be even across the board. Choose what makes sense for your character. My first character that I ever made, I put all of my stats very evenly across the board, so she was pretty well set for anything that she came across, but that didn't make her super strong for the class that she was in. The next character I made was a wizard. Maxed intelligence, maxed constitution, and then went into things like wisdom and other things and just put a couple points in each. So they weren't great, but they were balanced out so they worked for your character. Those are the most important things. If you are worried about your ability scores when you first create your character, don't worry. As you level up, you can add ability score improvements. There's a bunch of items in game that you can attempt to find that will allow your intelligence to increase and things of that nature. So if you don't like what everything looks like, try it again, rework it, or leave it as it is and work it into your character. Maybe your intelligence is low as a barbarian, which is fine. You can be the big meathead barbarian, or you can be a rather weak barbarian with a high charisma and be a smooth talker who doesn't necessarily like to get into a fight and tries to talk their way out of battle. If your stats are weird, work it into your character. It tends to make sense. If you, for some reason, have a hard time with specific situations with your character, make sure your stats reflect it. So that is my very bare bones, basic way of creating a character. Normally, after I've gotten all my stats done, by that point I'll have an idea of my story if I haven't had one already, or I will be ready to sit down and draw the character that goes along with the stats. Or if you haven't even come up with a name yet, maybe the name will strike you. Everything comes back around when creating a character, so keep it in mind. If, while creating, you suddenly come upon a name in a story somewhere and you go, oh, that's it, that's the name I want for my character, you can go in and plug it in later. If you come up with your story along the way, make sure to take notes of it. Think about what you want them to be and why you want them to be like that, and keep it in mind as you create. So I hope you guys enjoyed my little tutorial, and now over to the art section for just a couple minutes so I can explain this art piece. So for those of you who were not necessarily interested in the Dungeons and Dragons portion, but you wanted to listen to me talk about it for some reason, and have made it this far to the art portion, I commend you, because that was a lot of talking. So this piece is done on Strathmore marker paper, which I recently purchased and I'm very happy about because it works so much better than the Bristol board that I had. So it is Copics on the Strathmore paper and just a bunch of Micron pens, a couple Copic multi-liners, and that's about it. I went in with the line art last because I didn't know how clean I was going to be in coloring this, so I wanted to make sure that I had the room to mess up a little bit before I went in and colored it all in. I used silver detailing on the buckles just because that's what I normally do, and yeah. So this is my warlock character. She doesn't necessarily have a name yet. I'm trying to think of one. I wanted to go with Raven, but I actually already have a character that I've created named, well, not necessarily my creation, but I gave her life named Raven. And I feel like it's too close. Because the basis of this character is that she is a follower of the Raven Queen, which is a god from Taldore, Wildmount, that area of the world of D&D. So, that's about all I've got for her. She's a warlock, Raven Queen. She loves being a warlock, loves her patron, and that's kind of it. So I'm trying to think of what else I'd like for her, but when I do, you guys will probably be one of the first to know about it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it was not too boring, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye, everyone!
Hey guys, if you like this video, be sure to check out another one over there, and if you want to see the full playlist for this series, check out over here. Thank you for watching, and subscribe if you like, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye everyone!